I'm VJ Hamilton and welcome to the Autoimmune Reset, the place for you to learn how to thrive with autoimmune disease and feel empowered to take steps to transform your health to feel better than ever. You can start making changes today to improve your health. So with every episode, my mission is to share with you simple ways to up-level your diet and lifestyle with key learnings from my own journey reversing autoimmune disease and inspirational stories from those who have reset their autoimmune symptoms and are now thriving in life. I suffered from autoimmune disease for over 25 years and now I live symptom-free, and I wish the same for you as well. So thank you for being here and sharing this time with me. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Autoimmune Reset podcast. I'm your host, VJ Hamilton. I'm a registered nutritionist, founder of the Autoimmune Nutrition Clinic, and someone who's been through the autoimmune journey myself. In today's episode, we're going to shift the spotlight away from the immune system and look at what's really going on underneath the surface when it comes to an autoimmune disease. Because while the immune system gets the attention, it's often not the original problem. It's the part we see flaring up, reacting, attacking. But the question I always ask in clinic is, why is the immune system reacting this way in the first place? And that's where these 5 body systems come in. By the end of the episode, you'll understand how different systems in the body, from your gut to your lymph, are deeply connected to the development and progression of autoimmune conditions. And more importantly, you'll learn what you can do to start supporting them. So let's dive in. The first system we are focusing on is the gut barrier, because around 70 to 80% of your immune system is located in and around your gut. So when the gut barrier becomes compromised, what we call increased intestinal permeability, or you may have heard of leaky gut, and I've talked about leaky gut a lot on this podcast, it's not just a digestive issue, it becomes an immune issue, and that's because increased permeability allows undigested food proteins, toxins and bacterial fragments to cross into the bloodstream, triggering an immune response. And over time, this repeated activation can lead to immune confusion and, in genetically predisposed people, autoimmunity. Now, some people are more susceptible to leaky gut barriers than others. Throughout my clinical practice, I have been picking up on patterns that I am seeing in people with different autoimmune conditions, and a lot of the time, people don't choose to do any genetic testing, but when they do genetic testing, I find that there are some key genes that are involved in this particular issue with a leaky gut barrier. It isn't just about toxicity and bacterial imbalance and inflammation. There can be other things going on as well, because some of the genes that relate to the tight junctions, and they're what help to regulate the permeability of the gut, can be a factor when it comes to developing an autoimmune condition. And you may have heard of zonulin, and zonulin is released and it causes the tight junctions, those gaps in the gut wall, open up more when zonulin is released. And zonulin is also released when you eat gluten. So a lot of the time, clients might ask me whether they should give up gluten while we're working together, even though we know there isn't a gluten sensitivity. And this, the reason that I recommend going gluten-free whilst we're working on the gut, because even if you aren't gluten sensitive, it could still be causing leaky gut because it causes a release of zonulin. Not everyone chooses to do that, and I support my clients either way, but it can be helpful if you are doing a gut protocol. There is also genes related to inflammatory pathways like PTGS2, it's also known as COX2, and that can influence the body's ability to maintain mucosal integrity at the gut barrier as well. Conditions like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is referred to as EDS, can also increase vulnerability. With EDS, the connective tissue in the gut may be less resilient, making it easier for the barrier to become more permeable under stress, infection, or inflammation. Clients often come to me saying, I don't have gut symptoms, but they have eczema, brain fog, joint pain, or thyroid antibodies. And when we run a stool test, we see clear signs of microbial imbalance and barrier dysfunction. That's why any autoimmune protocol, regardless of the diagnosis, needs to include gut barrier repair. For me, it's not optional, it's foundational. So the next steps in any autoimmune plan: assess and support the gut lining. That might look like removing triggers like food sensitivities or bacterial overgrowth or parasites, repairing with nutrients like glutamine, zinc, or butyrate, which are all known to help with the gut barrier function, supporting bile flow, which is often impacted when people aren't able to digest fats well, and it can happen as we age and as we accumulate more toxins and crystals in our body, and we can have an issue with our gallbladder, and gently reintroducing fermented and prebiotic fibers at the right time and in the right context. For example, if someone still has significant bloating, histamine intolerance, or has bacterial overgrowth on a stool test, jumping into fermented foods or high FODMAP fibers too early can actually make things worse. And I know there is so much out there at the moment about increasing fiber. I get lots of questions from clients about introducing these fiber-rich powders into their diet, and they can be helpful. I would always go for a whole food approach when it comes to fiber, but if your gut is imbalanced, then it can cause more harm than good. And that's why it is best to introduce prebiotic fibers, and especially when it comes to the prebiotic powders, when your gut is in a much calmer state, because we need to calm the inflammation and clear the overgrowth first, then you can start to rebuild. Next is the lymphatic system. And I want to talk about this because it's so often overlooked. And you can think of it as your immune system's drainage and surveillance network, responsible for clearing waste, inflammatory byproducts, immune cells, and even pathogens after they've done their job. And unlike the circulatory system, the lymphatic system doesn't have a central pump. It relies on movement, hydration, breathing through your diaphragm, and gentle physical stimulation to maintain flow. And when the lymph becomes sluggish or congested, we often see signs like puffiness, skin flares, brain fog, and overall a metabolic slowdown, which may look like gaining weight or not being able to lose it. And in autoimmune clients, this stagnation can exacerbate flares because the body is struggling to eliminate the very inflammation it's generating. And what makes somebody more susceptible to lymphatic stagnation? Well, several factors increase vulnerability. Connective tissue disorders like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome can weaken the lymphatic integrity. You can have leaky vessels as well, and that can cause issues with the lymphatic system. Abdominal surgeries can also disrupt lymph flow and create scar tissue, which can cause issues with the lymph as well. Leaky veins and capillary fragility can often coexist with gut permeability, and even mineral imbalances or poor kidney can be an issue because the lymph works closely with the renal pathways to offload waste. So when I'm working with clients who have lymphatic issues, we are going to be focusing on their kidney health as well, because that is often part of the issue when somebody's lymph isn't working effectively. So when we talk about healing lymphatics, it's not just skin deep, it's systemic. Dry brushing, gentle rebounding, walking, breath work, which is helping with your diaphragm, castor oil packs, they can all have a role. Even something as simple as increasing your water intake and stretching first thing in the morning can begin to reactivate the stagnation which we see in lymphatic issues. It's not glamorous, but it is a crucial axis in restoring immune balance. Next is detoxification. And we're not just talking here about green juice kind of detoxification, but the real physiological process your body depends on every single day. Detoxification isn't a trend, it's a biological necessity. Your liver, kidneys, lymphatics, skin, and breath are all designed to eliminate waste and maintain this internal equilibrium in your body. But when these systems become overburdened, whether by environmental toxins, which we might be breathing in, chronic inflammation, if you have a high toxicity level, or if you are being exposed to mold, or there's imbalances in the gut, or microbial imbalance, or a high viral load, these metabolites begin percolating beneath the surface, disrupting immune regulation and contributing to flares. What I see frequently in autoimmune clients is a predilection for rapid phase 1 liver activity, especially if there's a high toxic load or long-term medication use. Phase 1 breaks down toxins into intermediate compounds, but here's the catch. These intermediates are often more reactive and deleterious than the original substance. If phase 2 detoxification isn't working efficiently, for example due to nutrient deficiencies, methylation issues, or sluggish sulfation, which is part of detoxification, these harmful intermediates build up. It's like opening all the windows in a storm without checking if the drains are working. You are left in chaos. And this is where the gut steps in. If you're constipated, not producing enough bile, or dealing with dysbiosis, your detox pathways become even more congested, because really digestion is phase 3 detox. And toxins are then reabsorbed, estrogen recirculates, and inflammation continues to simmer. One of the items which is tested for in the stool test that I run is something called beta-glucuronidase, and it is an enzyme that helps with detoxification, especially in the gut. And when that is raised, that means that you are more likely to reabsorb estrogen. So again, when I'm working with clients and they might do the Dutch test and we see high estrogen, it isn't always about your body producing too much estrogen, and often it's not that reason. It's because your body isn't able to clear the estrogen out. And that is why digestion is a key piece in detoxification as well. This isn't just theoretical. I've seen it time and again in my clients. Someone with persistent fatigue or histamine overload or hormone imbalances, and behind it all, overloaded, undersupported detox system is often the culprit. So what can you do? Well, detox support doesn't need to be dramatic. Often it's the gentle, consistent steps that create the biggest shifts. So load up on your cruciferous vegetables because they help to support that end phase, that phase 2 pathway. You can use bitters to encourage bile flow and liver drainage. You can do that by adding bitter foods into your diet and eating them before a meal, or include a bitter tea like an artichoke leaf tea before a meal, and that can help to stimulate bile flow. Ensure daily elimination by going to the toilet every day, and if you're not, understanding why. Is it because you have low fibre, or you have low minerals like low magnesium? Or is it another factor? Do you need to work on your vagal tone? Because actually a low vagal tone can cause you to be constipated as well, because that helps with peristalsis. So understanding why you are not going regularly and working on that can be helpful as well. And then minimize toxicity in your environment, like the synthetic fragrances, the plastic packaging, and the processed foods, because they are just going to add to the load. And if you need deeper intervention, whether it's mold, metals, or long-standing infections, that work should be preceded by a stable, well-supported foundation. Otherwise, you're simply stirring the pot without an exit route, and that can be hugely problematic. And I think that's where people give up, because they are doing so much and they're trying really hard with their health, but they've taken a step too soon. And when I'm working with clients, I work with clients over a 3-month period or over a 4 to 6 month period, because we have to take it a step at a time, especially in a very reactive system. In autoimmune recovery, detox isn't optional. It's one of the most underestimated drivers of immune dysregulation and one of the most correctable, so don't miss that step. Next is the microbiome, and this is one of the most influential systems when it comes to autoimmune health, and probably the one you've heard the most about. We tend to think of the microbiome as something confined to the gut, But microbial ecosystems exist throughout the body, in the oral cavity, in your sinuses, your skin, your lungs, and even in your urogenital tract. And disruptions in any of these areas can influence systemic immunity. The makeup of your microbial community influences everything from nutrient absorption and neurotransmitter production to immune calibration. And in autoimmune conditions, microbes can also drive citrullination, which is a post-translational modification of proteins that creates neoantigens or new immune targets. This is the hallmark of rheumatoid arthritis and is increasingly being explored in other autoimmune conditions. So when you have these bacteria and they're living in the mouth, they're living in the gut, they get into the bloodstream and they move into different areas in the body, and citrullination happens and your joint looks unfamiliar to the immune system, and that creates this inflammatory response and a lot of pain in your joints as well. Some bacteria can even alter host cell proteins, they can disrupt mucosal signaling, and they can amplify the Th17 dominant inflammation, which is strongly implicated in many autoimmune processes. And I'm going to be covering that on another podcast episode, so we can talk more about the immune system, because the immune system is part of this as well, but these underlying systems need to be strong so that we can then shift the immune system back into balance. So it's not just about bad bacteria, it's about microbial miscommunication. And on the flip side, beneficial species help establish tolerance. They produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate that nourish colonocytes, reinforce the gut bacteria, and temper inflammatory responses. What's key is balance, not sterilization. Autoimmune recovery doesn't come from wiping out every opportunistic bacteria, but from recalibrating the microbiome so that diversity, resilience, and immune education in the body can flourish. And that might involve reducing overgrowths, and I will usually start with a cleansing protocol, but also bringing in the right foods, fibers, and in some cases strain-specific probiotics to repopulate what might be missing. And this is where testing becomes invaluable, because without knowing what's actually there, you're guessing. And a lot of people will go straight to a probiotic when they have gut issues. And the truth is, probiotics come much later down the line for me when I'm working with a client on a gut protocol, because you need to cleanse everything and get everything back into balance before bringing in new strains of bacteria into the gut. And when it comes to your microbiome, guesswork rarely leads to long-term solutions. So knowing your starting place can be extremely helpful. And I will put the link to my gut health testing package in the show notes if you're interested in exploring that further. And finally, the nervous system. This one is often underestimated because it's harder to quantify, but in many cases, it's the missing piece. Your nervous system is constantly scanning your internal and external environment for cues of safety or threat. Feeling safe is so key when you have an autoimmune condition. And for many people with autoimmunity, this system has been rewired, often from early stress, trauma, or prolonged periods of high demand, to stay in a state of hypervigilance. And I see this a lot with my clients. There has been something in the past that has caused them to not feel safe in the world. And I know this because I've lived it too. For years, I was always switched on. I was juggling intense work, I was pushing through fatigue, and I never truly rested because my nervous system was just on this switched on state. Even when I thought I was relaxing, my body was still running on a high alert program. And when you're in that chronic fight or flight state, even from digestion to hormone signaling, the immune regulation is compromised. Blood sugar regulation becomes erratic. I would crash after lunch every day, and just trying to stay awake was hard in itself, let alone having to do work and live a normal life. Your gut motility can slow as well, and that can cause constipation. inflammation increases, and the immune system loses its tolerance, which means it becomes reactive. It reacts to things it normally would ignore, and this overreactivity is something that a lot of people with autoimmune disease are having to live with, and it becomes very difficult because you're not only reacting to food, and that means that eating out then becomes a concern, but you can react to lots of chemicals. You can react to things you put on your skin, you can react to your clothes. It just becomes very hard to cope with. And this isn't just about stress, it's about neuroimmune dysregulation. And research increasingly shows that trauma, especially unresolved trauma, can set the stage for autoimmune disease by altering how the brain and immune system communicate. That's why nervous system support is non-negotiable in every plan I create. Not just for recovery, but for long-term remission. And that's really what we're seeking when it comes to recovering from an autoimmune disease. And no, it doesn't mean meditating for an hour a day. It can be as simple as 5 minutes of vagus nerve stimulation using a tool like NeuroSim. I use my NeuroSim for an hour a day, and you don't have to use it all at the same time. You can use it for 15 minutes in a morning and 30 minutes at lunch and 15 minutes on an evening. And it's one of my favorite tools now for daily nervous system reset. You can also do structured breath work throughout your day. That can help with your lymphatics as well. And then walking in nature and immersing yourself in that natural light and being mindful about being in nature as well can help to reset the nervous system. So just making sure that you're going outside, going for a long walk on the weekend if you don't have time during the week, but you can get outside in the morning as well and be around nature, and that can make a huge difference. Also reducing digital overstimulation in the evening so your body gets a chance to calm down. A routine before going to bed can make a big difference as well. And when it comes to your nervous system, your connections and relationships are also a huge factor. So creating boundaries with people, seeing your close friends more regularly can make a big difference. And there is so much more research coming out about this, how our relationships impact us. So if you haven't arranged a meetup with a friend recently, message them after you've listened to this and get something in the diary, and you're going to feel so good after that. And when we're feeling good and at ease and with people that we love, that has such a knock-on effect to our health as well. When the nervous system feels safe, the immune system no longer needs to defend, and that shift from reactivity to regulation is often the turning point. So to recap, the 5 systems I always consider in my autoimmune clients is the gut barrier, the lymphatic system, the detox pathways, the microbiome, and the nervous system. And when these systems are supported, the immune system no longer has to work so hard. It begins to regulate instead of react. If today's episodes have made you think about which system might be out of balance in your own health, I created a simple starting guide called the Autoimmunity Recovery Plan. It breaks down practical, doable steps for calming inflammation and restoring your body's natural balance, and you can download that in the show notes. And if you're looking for a safe space to ask questions, share your story, or connect with others on a similar path, come and join us in the Autoimmune Forum. It's my private community designed to support you at every stage of your journey, and you'll find the link in the show notes as well. As always, thank you for listening. If you found this helpful, share it with a friend, leave a quick review, or tag me on Instagram. Every share helps more people find the support that they need. Until next time, be gentle with your body, stay curious, and keep going, because I know it's not easy when you're living with an autoimmune condition, but the small steps that we can take every day can make a big difference. Have a fantastic week, and I will speak to you soon. Take care. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Autoimmune Reset. I really hope you enjoyed the discussion, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. And if you liked it, I would hugely appreciate a review on iTunes, as it helps me understand what you like about the podcast and to help share the information with more people. I'm excited to speak to you next time, and remember, you have the power to take the reins on your health. So keep the faith and celebrate the small wins. Until next time.